All right, welcome back. So we take over the cast once again. Here's the gameplay crew. For those of you who don't know, Clint Oldenburg, right there. Will Sykes at Sick Nasty Sykes on Twitter, and myself, Rex DEA Football. So let's talk title update. This is title update 10. This one has been quite a long time in the making. We've actually held back some of the bigger fixes while we waited for the Madden challenge, the Madden Bowl challenge to be over, because we didn't want to really disrupt the tournament in midstream. And also because of the nature, size, complexity of this update, we wanted to ensure that we were giving our QA department enough time to test this stuff thoroughly. As you know, in the past, there's been a few occasions where we've claimed something that's fixed in a patch and it obviously wasn't fixed. So we're trying to do our best to avoid that problem moving forward. But let's kick it off because we got a lot to cover. Obviously, there's a lot in today's update. I just want to start off by saying a little bit of context on why we would be releasing an update in February. I think with MUT being what it is, and with the competitive gaming and franchise players, what you have is an environment where people are playing this game months and months and months into the year. It's not a normal game where you play 20, 30 hours and then you're done with it and you shelve it and you move on to the next thing. So with that in mind, we want to make sure that the issues that are detractors for you guys, or the issues that are kind of interfering with your ability to enjoy the game, are things that we take seriously, because we want you to play all the way in through July, August until the next game comes out. That's our ideal situation, which is why these updates are so important to us, because it's supposed to be like, we don't want you guys to live with the same gameplay flaws you've been seeing all along. We want to sort of deliver the fixes you need, while at the same time changing the meta. It's a really important theme we're going to get into in a little bit, about why we want to change the gameplay meta midstream throughout the year. But let's kick it off with our first theme, and that is that bronze O-lines were too effective against an elite front. This was mainly feedback we started getting when the salary cap tournaments kicked off. It's been pretty universal, and I'll let Clint talk about what we did to fix it.
Yeah, like Rex said, this was a universal complaint that we got a lot on social media and through our community. And what we did is we looked at telemetry to look at the average ratings of D linemen and offensive linemen inside of the salary cap mode, and we based that on the numbers we wanted to use to set some thresholds to improve elite offensive lines versus bronze D lines, and elite D lines versus bronze offensive lines. We're getting sticks here.
So
basically, if you're outside of 10 to 15 points in the important ratings, which is run block and pass block for the offensive lineman, block shed, finesse move, power move for the defensive lineman, then you're going to see some different things. For example, you're going to get rid of insta sheds out of bronze D line versus elite O line. Insta sheds, I put that in parentheses. Also, on the other side of the ball, you're going to see elite D linemen beating bronze O linemen much more frequently. And the reason for this is to make salary cap more balanced. The primary complaint was you can get a superstar at every single position because you just tank your O line, and we didn't like that look any more than you guys did. So we did do some work there, and the best thing about the feature is we put it all in a tunable state, meaning if we want to keep tuning it in the future, we just put out a tuner pack. We don't have to do a title update.
And so right now what you're seeing is Clint's using the Green Bay Packers. They have one of the better offensive lines in the game. And I'm using the Raiders, who have a good defensive line, but I just subbed in a bunch of low 70 overall players. So you'll see a huge difference in the way that elite offensive linemen are able to block against these below average defensive linemen now.
Could you tell us, Clint, a little bit about the min shed cap timer, why we changed it at launch and kind of how it's involved in this change?
Yeah, we put in timers in alpha for the shed moves on defense, and that was driven by the shed move rating of the defender only. We didn't take the blocker into account, and the primary reason for that was the new zones. We wanted pass rush to support the zones, so you got more pressure so the zones wouldn't be able to break down over time. We found out after launch that was flawed, because obviously if you have a really good blocker, then you want the defender to be delayed. So we also brought that in with this title update, with this bronze O-line fix, in that if your blocker has a pass block rating in the elite range, then we're going to slow down that timer. So in the past, maybe you had a guy around 89, 90, finesse move, power move, whatever he's best in, he was going to be right around about a half a second shed. Now if you have an elite blocker that is better than that guy's move, he can slow that guy's shed timer down by a quarter of a second, a half a second, whatever the range is. so that those guys aren't as lethal in your pass rush.
Nice. Yeah, and the one thing to look out for here, guys, is if you're still running a bronze offensive line and all of a sudden you're getting insta-shedded, that's a sure sign that it's time to upgrade your offensive line because you're playing an elite defensive front. Is there anything else in blocking we should cover before we move on here, Clint?
Yeah, I think the other two important ones is you saw a note in the patch notes about nearby blockers are now going to be able to help on defenders who had just beaten their previous blocker. And we had that in initially at launch because people who like to user the defensive line, they'd hit the move button, they'd get off the block, and then the other guy would go block him right away, and you had to beat another guy to get your sack, and people didn't think that was rewarding. So we said, hey, there's a little time buffer in here before another guy can target you after you beat your blocker. And we just removed that. We said if there's a guy close enough to target you after you beat a block, whether it's user-controlled or AI-controlled, we're going to allow that guy to target him to take care of that concern. And then the other one, which I thought was pretty important, was the defenders in Heat Seeker were unable to be valid blocking targets of blockers, and I believe this to be the primary cause of the complaint of wide receivers not blocking downfield. I think DBs are in that Heat Seeker assignment when they're going to initiate their tackle on the ball carrier, and our blockers are basically ignoring them from being a valid blocking target, so we addressed that as well.
That'll also, I'm sure everyone's seen those videos of when somebody's rushing like 2 or 3 against 5, and the one guy sheds and none of the blockers pick him up. They just stand there chopping their feet. That'll also help solve that issue.
And one more thing to add real quick is this doesn't mean that you're going to see right tackles able to all of a sudden veer over to the opposite side of the line and pick up a defensive end. Offensive linemen, aren't psychic in real life, so it would be a little difficult for somebody to know to run all the way over to the other side of the line to pick up someone who's rushing. So you're not going to see that from this update.
Yeah, it has to be a nearby guy, basically an adjacent blocker next to the guy who just got beat.
Now, as long as we're on the subject of blocking, let's cover one more thing that people have brought up, which is the nickel blitz and what kind of improvements. I know there's some people out there who think we've nerfed it or patched it. Could you tell us what actually we've done?
Well, we've improved targeting, basically bugs with targeting, but I think the primary thing you're going to see because of the one in the stability section of the patch notes, which is making game speed uniform across all modes, that nickel was rushing much, much faster online than he was offline, which was making it more difficult for our blockers to get to him even when targeting him. But outside of that, if you just block a tight end to that side, he'll block him up. If you get a running back to the side of the nickel who's rushing, block him, he'll usually get him as long as you step up into the pocket. Also, purple routes for the running back, the check and release, are very effective for picking up the nickel blitz. One thing I do want to point out with that, there's a lot of discussion about, well, they're only rushing 3 or 4 versus my 7, 8 blockers. Well, in reality, what you're doing with these setups is you're overloading one side of the line. You have 3 rushers on the left side, say the left side of the center. They're all coming. And then you have a middle linebacker lurking right in the middle of the field. And he's going to eat up either the center or the guard because he's a threat. We can't ignore that guy because you could easily just click on run through the A-gap once we fanned out to the nickel. Our blocking principle states we're going to protect inside out. We're going to, at all costs, protect the A-gap and the B-gap. We're going to work out late to that slot guy. My best advice is if you don't want to use extra blockers, you don't want to make those adjustments, get a hot read ready. Make sure you have a short route on the side of the nickel blitz. Throw that hot read. It's going to be open.
Nice. All right, guys, if you can go back to the main camera, we're going to switch topics here. Get my, yeah, there you go. A little hotness on the camera. So let's talk about probably the biggest change in this update, and it's the scariest change, and it was a hell of a fight to kind of get to this one. Dating back as far back as like September when the game first launched. As you know, we got a lot of reports of people dropping wide open racks, and we started looking into it and trying to figure out what was going on. And we tried to tune some stuff and that didn't work, and we tried to solve some problems in animation and that didn't solve it. And when people started sending us videos of 98, 99 overall players dropping it the same exact way as lower rated players, we knew we had a pretty serious problem. And we tried a variety of techniques to try and solve that problem in gameplay, and no matter what we tried, we couldn't solve the issue. And we were primarily seeing this only in online games, which makes it significantly more complicated for the gameplay team to track down if it's an online-only environment bug. So months go by, and we're trying to fix this, and as you guys know, patch notes came out, and we said we think we fixed the rack drops, and they weren't fixed. And We finally figured out what was going on. And the reason we figured it out is because RG, who most of you probably know, had filed a request with the gameplay team to research an issue we had heard a lot about online games don't play at the same speed. If you were playing in Draft Champions, you were getting a slower speed than Salary Cap. And of course, in gameplay, we have no idea what's going on. We're like, there's no reason the game should be running at various speeds. We can't understand why this is happening. Now, come to terms, when we did the investigation and the engineer looked into it, we found out that there was a multiplier being added outside of kind of gameplay in our online server architecture. And the history is, and the reason this multiplier got added was because when we implemented the new online architecture this year, which we call rebroadcasters, which is basically built to prevent IP booting and eliminate lag. And I'm sure most of you have experienced a lot less of that this year, which is good. In order for that system to run, it has to run at a slightly lower game speed to compensate for the fact that it's running in the background. So instead of 30, for example, it might run at 25 frames per second. And what they did is put a multiplier in code to then try to trick the game into feeling like it was running at 30 even though it wasn't. That speed multiplier, the gameplay team actually doesn't even know that this is happening because it's happening outside of our group on some different online architecture, which is why it was such a struggle for us to figure out where it was coming from. Once we finally knew where it was coming from, we ran some tests and basically we proved out that a lot of bugs, and the primary one that you're going to know about is the rack drops, where you do a rack drop, a rack catch, and the ball hits your guy's hands, bounces into the air, usually picked off by someone. But we've all seen the wide open rack drops this year. We've all lost first down conversions because of the rack drops this year. We've seen it in tournaments. We all know what it is. The reason that bug happens is because the game speed is running at a variation of what it's expected to be. So if the game says, I need to run at 30 frames per second, okay, on frame 26 of this catch animation, I'm going to match a catch where my hands touch the ball. Now, when the game is slowed down and then sped back up, frames are skipped. So now frame 26 doesn't exist anymore. It goes right from 23 to 28, and that frame where his hands were supposed to hit the ball and catch it doesn't exist. So the ball bounces off his hands. That's probably the worst example, but there are a lot of others. There's probably, off the top of my head, 8 to 10 issues that we're pretty sure are caused by this time step issue. You guys talked this year about how fluky Madden 17 is and these random outcomes that don't look legit. Probably the large bulk of those are from this time step issue. So I had a very difficult decision to make. In order to fix this issue, the only way to fix this issue that we knew about was to set the game speed back down to normal across the board. 1.0, no multiplier. What that means, guys, is that some of the game modes online are going to play a little bit slower. Salary Cap is probably going to play a little bit slower. Regs, regular MUT head-to-head, going to play a little bit slower. Draft Champions should normally stay pretty much marginalized the same because it was playing already slower before. But everything is now normalized to one game speed, which is the speed at which gameplay needs the game to be running at. So for those of you, if you're running in a franchise, for example, on slow game speed, you might want to reconsider bumping up your game speed to normal. And if the game feels too slow for you, that's one thing you might want to consider. What I would ask for you guys is, I know some of you are going to really like this patch and like the update, but you're not going to like the fact that the game feels slower. Give it a week or two. Tell me how you feel after that time, because essentially what you're trading for a slower game speed is a fix for the rack drops, a fix for the unrecoverable fumbles, a fix for the quarterback hitch step and a scramble, and other various related issues. So my hope is that you're willing to have a slightly slower game in favor of a lot less fluke. That's my hope anyway, and that's why we rolled this fix out. Now, I do want to follow it up by saying that it is a server-side change, meaning the speed change is not linked to the code update you took this morning. It's something we can change. So if the community is adamant and unified that this is not a good change and that you'd rather have the rack drops than a slower game speed, that's something you should tweet at us. Let us know. If we feel like there's mass consensus that this was not the right move, let us know and we'll consider changing it back to what it was. And just keep in mind, you'll be getting rack drops back with that faster game speed. So that was the decision, and that's kind of how we went about making it. I hope that explains it. and gets you guys up to speed on the whole drama of the rack drops.
I do want to point out one thing, though. What we're saying is, while we fix this issue with rack drops, there still will be cases where it is desired to have a rack drop in low-rated cases. So we're not saying all rack catches are going to be 100% caught now. It's just going to be back the way that it was designed to work.
Okay, let's move on from the game speed issue. That's probably the biggest one. There's probably, like I said, about 8 to 10 major and minor bugs linked to that fix, which are not listed out here, because we want to kind of see how it goes and make sure that the game speed thing works. But give us your feedback. Let us know if you're seeing less of those drops and other related issues. Let's move on to another topic, which is the user drop-down banner. So the user drop-down banner went in with the last update, update 9. It came from the competitive gaming division. It was as an RG design, working with a designer named Pat Belanca. Now, competitive gaming works a little bit differently than gameplay. Gameplay is used to an annual release with several updates throughout the year. CGD likes to push new features out throughout the year. They like to keep updating, keep things fresh. And one of these things is this user feedback banner, which drops down from the top of the screen. So that went in, and it went in with continuous releases. We usually, we don't have as much testing as we would have on an annual release type feature. So sometimes those features go in a little buggy. And they also sometimes go in and where we're kind of waiting to get user feedback before we know how to evolve or iterate on the feature. So with the drop downs, we fixed the thing where it was precluding the stats, the player stat drop downs. We felt like the player stat should probably take priority. We took out the user banners for user catch, finesse, and power moves, mostly because they're triggering all the time, and it just got old seeing it constantly trigger. And then finally, we fixed the safety banner that dropped down when you got an interception in the end zone. And like anything else that comes out mid-year, guys, just make sure you get us feedback on it, because these things can evolve and change over time, and it's usually based on your feedback that indicates kind of what direction those things go in. All right, what do we got next?
Trying to ad catch me, bro?
All right, let's talk about meta. So last year, if you remember, the meta was all about Mike Scrape, and then it was all about that what was that cross blitz called?
Crossfire 3.
Crossfire 3. You remember me talking about this because essentially it got to such a problematic state that people were running Mike Scrape with no idea what the setups were. It was our most popular call defense by almost 70%, just because everyone was watching everyone else run it and thought, yeah, that's the cool thing to do. Even people that don't even know how to run the blitz out of it were running it. So that's a problem for us. It's also a bad look for the game when every single play you're having to block the same blitz or defend the same corner strike play over and over. So every year this stuff's going to happen. It's a natural extension of competitive play where people are going to find the stuff that works. It's going to go viral. Everyone's going to start doing it, and the meta starts to devolve into one or two things that people are doing effectively, right? So it's really important for us to step in and change the meta, and there's a couple reasons for that, right? We want to give you guys a chance to re-energize like the ebook community, to force people to go back in the lab and relab things, to make sure that when we go into the next Madden Championship finals that you're not seeing the same DB nickel blitz every single play, that you're not seeing everyone run corner strike over and over and over. These things become more important to us now that we have a competitive gaming division, but it's also important in regards to if you guys are going to be playing the game all year long, you shouldn't have to be playing against the same concepts, right? So we want to sort of massage those things to create new concepts and new metas that arise. So one of the things we talked about earlier was the DB blitz. This is a very common defense that most people are running. I know there's a few others like buck slant, but the main one that we're seeing the most of is nickel blitz. And the common practice there is to have a fast DB. He comes in off the edge. The blockers can't reach him. As Clint said, we've done some targeting work. I tested personally the fact that motioning a tight end over there picks him up 9 out of 10 times. So there's been some fixes there. Also, the game speed has a pretty big impact on that one as well. The next one I want to talk about is the precision dive. So I'll own the L on this one because throughout the alpha, the competitive guys were telling me dropping bugs saying the precision dive is overpowered. We need to fumble like 90% of the time that we precision dive. And I hated that because I always precision dive on 3rd and short for my first down. And I said, it doesn't make sense to me that we'd build this mechanic called precision dive and have you fumble 90% of the time you try to use it. There was also a height restriction in there that wasn't sort of strict enough. And so what you noticed in the last tournament is that every time somebody gets a 3rd and 1 or 4th and run, they run the precision dive, they get a first down. The problem is there's no meta there. It's not interesting. There's not enough risk. So now everyone's doing it on 3rd and 3rd and short becomes a boring part of our game, which is why we did some work on it.
And the tight end, too. We also made it so you have to be a running back to get that Tier 1 dive. It was never intended to be used as a tight end jump over the pile because he's 90-plus jump. And the reason that we decided to go the fumble route as well as the tight end route is because in real life, the Patriots aren't handing the ball to Gronk to jump over the pile because they think he'll probably get hurt or he'll fumble. Same with Jimmy Graham. And people were abusing that jump rating because the tight ends are the ones that have that rating more so than the running backs. So we made it that you have to have a running back with a Tier 1 jump rating, 90-plus jump to be able to pull that off. But no matter what the rating is or what the position is, you are still going to have a risk to fumble.
Okay, and then finally, let's talk about user hit sticks. So this is a little bit of an embarrassing one for me. It all started, I was looking at two things, basically. The first is in competitive play. I wasn't seeing people use the ball carrier special moves the way we're used to. To go from like the double juke of last year to come to this, we're seeing actually a majority of people use the give up mechanic instead of take a tackle or use a move. That was not a good look. Obviously, the special move, ball carrier special move versus tackling system did not manifest itself the way we intended in competitive play this year. There's a bunch of reasons for that I don't want to get into specifically. The biggest one of those that I didn't like was the frequency and overabundance of standing hit sticks. And when I say standing hit stick, it's the one where the defender runs in, he's unblocked, he's usually user controlled, he taps X at the last second, you're already inside the fake out window, and you tap X and you match this kind of standing blow up hit stick. What I don't like about it is people are way too good at it, meaning it's too easy to do. People aren't getting faked out by the special move system, which was the intended design, was the more you go for hit sticks, the more likely you are to be faked out. So none of that stuff was actually working properly. The biggest thing that I noticed was there's no risk to doing a hit stick. Like people just weren't missing and people weren't getting broken tackles. And so that's something we looked at and we realized that the system we had in place to say that hit stick should be high risk. Yes, you can blow the guy up, and yes, there's high chance of fumble, but the huge risk is that you can miss a tackle. You're trying to blow the guy up. You're not trying to wrap. You should get a lot of broken tackles in that situation. That whole system was not connected properly, and now it is. So in the patch, you should see a much higher risk of broken tackles when you try to hit stick. Clint, anything to add?
Nope, you covered that one pretty good.
Okay, so I hope... that's not going to completely remove fumbles as being a big conversation in competitive play. I know between the sack fumbles and the strips and everybody in Mutt now having like 90-plus hit power and the big hitter traits, you're still going to get a lot of hit stick fumbles out there. It's going to happen, but this should just reduce it from being like the prominent thing. And the main thing I want is for you guys to not to feel like you have to fall to the ground every time someone's about to tackle you. It doesn't look good in competitive play. Okay, moving right along. Another big theme for us this year, and again, I think some of this stuff is legacy, meaning the bugs date back years, but a lot of it is now becoming in much sharper focus because of competitive Madden. And I know some of the sim guys are going to look at that and groan and eyes and stuff, but trust me, this has benefits across the board. What this gets into is basically grieving tactics and stability. That the more sort of the Madden championship and money being on the line becomes a thing and more people get involved in competitive Madden, then the number of people who are spending hundreds or thousands of hours in mom's basement labbing and labbing and labbing with their friends looking for any possible competitive advantage or glitch is now going to become more and more prominent. And because those glitches are now being used on a high level at a high level Madden elite leaderboard, the knowledge of those glitches being sent to us and people complaining about them is also increasing. what I could say to you is we fixed a bunch of stuff in this patch. I'll just go over in this update. Some of them, there's a lot in here, but like some of them is where, an opponent could dashboard you just by seeing your name at the start. That's something we're dealing with right now. We're looking for a solution to that is hopefully a little bit more nuanced than just banning the guy who did it. Like that one is basically like he sees your gamer tag, he knows you're someone that's good and doesn't want to play you, so he dashboards to get out of the game. There's one about people could call a timeout on the pause menu and mess with your camera settings and force you into all 22 for the remainder of the game. We got that one fixed. You Need Seattle Bum reported that one to me several times. I actually saw it happen on his stream once. There's one going on right now. We thought we had a fix for this. I'm getting some reports that people say it's not completely fixed in Mutt Play a Friend, where your auto flip would be basically defaulted to on even though you had it shut off. So that's something we're looking into. If you've had a chance to test that out in the update and you have a report for us, please let us know. I did get some CFM reports that still's not working, so we'd like to make sure we get that resolved in the next one.
The false start one too.
That's a big one. That one goes back almost 5 to 7 years, we think. When people would run no huddle, they could get your defensive lineman off sides. I think in competitive Madden, people would talk about you never accept that penalty because it's just not a sportsman thing to do. You won't have to worry about that anymore because we finally got that one fixed. We're not done either, guys. There's one out there right now where people can actually, they do some menu dashboard thing and force a loss on your opponent. If this has happened to you or if you know how it's done, get in touch with us. Let us know. The number one way to get these things fixed, guys, is when you find out about how people are doing it, that you let the dev team know. As soon as we understand how people are doing it and what the repro steps are, we're weeks away from having it fixed for you guys. If you sit on these things and you try to hide them from us because you think it's cool to behave this way or treat other people like this way or get wins in this way, what's going to end up happening is you're going to get banned. We're going to kick you out of our Madden ecosystem, and you won't be able to come back until Madden 18 or worse. Versus the alternative, which is work with us, be a hero for the community, be the guy who actually reported the glitch and the repro steps so that the dev team could solve it. We're all in this together, guys, and that's why you see guys like Problem and T-Raw and some of our bigger streamers, Golden Sports, working with the dev team to try to get this stuff eradicated from our community, because it's a win-win if we get this stuff eliminated for everybody.
This guy right here will find you.
I will find you.
Will find you.
Guaranteed.
We're going to get a lot more aggressive with these bans, guys. This stuff has no place in Madden. We don't want it any more than you do. And if you're one of these people who is doing this thing, reach out to me or reach out to RG or reach out to Jake and say, look, I know how people are doing this, and I'm willing to tell you guys. It's going to be a good thing for the entire community, and we will probably hook you up. Versus the alternative, keep doing these tactics, and we'll ban you, and you won't play Madden again for a long time. It's your choice, and so if you find out stuff or someone sends you a link or you get a DM with some new setup, just send it to us. I don't think anyone can agree that has a place in Madden or that's good for Madden. You just do it because you know about it. But why not be the better man, and when you know about it, tell us so we can get it fixed. Anything to add on that, guys?
No, just want to go into some of these other issues really quick. The R-stick pump fake that we put in. One. People were excited about that. So people were having issues throwing the ball away when outside the pocket because they were flicking instead of clicking. So we mitigated that issue. So now you're going to get that throw away when you're outside the pocket when you want it.
I also wanted to go over the swerve really quick. I saw a post in one of the groups that me, Rex, and Clint are in, GGM, where they were curious as to why we're fixing all of these gameplay issues and not addressing the swerve. So, Rex, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that at all.
Yeah, it's never a question of us choosing not to address something. We every issue that gets reported, most 90% of them, we'll investigate and we'll look into. And in the case of the swerve, obviously I wanted to fix. I wanted to fix right away, and we spent several weeks trying to fix it. And sometimes when you put a fix in, you cause splash damage. You introduce some other new problem. So you've essentially traded one problem for another. And that's what happened with the swerve. I'll let Will elaborate.
Yeah, so there was a fix that was implemented, and us as QA, me, RG, Kevin, John, Sullivan. You guys are familiar with the goons that we got here in the studio. We all banged on it, tested it for, I would say, about a week, and what we were seeing is reintroducing rocket catches with that fix, which, as you competitive guys know, it would be much better to live with the swerve, where you at least have a chance to defend it if you have good user skill, as opposed to reintroducing these rocket catches that in previous Maddens were close to impossible to defend.
Yeah, and then to take it a step further, I've been watching the tournaments, and as I watch the Madden Bowl, I hate the swerve, and I hate it because, you know, it's not that effective. Nobody was tearing the tournament open using a swerve tactic. In fact, half the time I see you guys try to swerve, you swerve yourself out of what could have been a catch if you just held Y. And that's really frustrating to me. I'm like, why would you do that? It's certainly working against you more often than it works for you in most cases, with Voltrex maybe being the lone exception of someone who's got it mastered to such a degree that it's terrifying. But, you know, with all that said, it's not that we're not fixing it. It's just that the specific way we had to fix this, and fix it the right way, was big enough and comprehensive enough that we had to push it out to 18. And I'm going to validate that decision primarily by, you know, you guys were able to counter it effectively in the Madden Bowl. And when I see a tactic that can be countered, my prioritization of that issue being high on our list goes down versus something that cannot be countered. Yes, Mr. Scandalberry.
Get your 6 skill up, guys. Defend the swerve.
There's a video. There's a great video that Zan put out about how to defend the swerve. I'm sure by this time, like, if you're a high-level player who's encountering the swerve, you already have your swerve D labbed out. If you don't, you know, just do your research on the internet. The defenses are out there. I know it's not ideal, guys, and believe me, we wanted to have it fixed, and I hate the fact that it's in the game. It'll be fixed next year. It's just one of those things where, you know, there is a defensive counter, so we didn't want to spend another month trying to fix it, and probably end up fixing it the wrong way. Anything else you guys want to cover before we wrap it up?
I don't think so.
There's some CFM fixes in here. I'm sure you guys on OS, I was reading the threads this morning. The QB accuracy slider is probably the biggest thing in CFM, as well as the punters kicking into the wind. I know there's still some form sub issues we haven't get to yet. There's some reasons for that, but we wanted to make sure that the sim guys were also taken care of and had a few of their key bugs fixed.
Yeah, I know a few of you guys who follow me on Twitter have been beating me up pretty bad over those 2 bugs, so those are in for you guys. And again, I just want to reiterate what Rex said. We're all in this together. We're a big family. We're a big community. The more that you guys are helpful with us, the better the game gets. We're not out there against you. It's not us versus you or you versus us or anything like that. We all want the game to be great. And I really like the turn that the community's had. Everyone's being a lot more positive. There's less toxic in the community than there has been before, and I want to see that keep growing. We are your friends, and we're there to make the game what you want it to be.
It just came up through the chat. A bunch of people were asking about the C routes. The main thing I'll just add there is that the seam, the cloud flat is the primary zone that got work. So if you're messing around with, I saw some people this morning, messing around with the soft squat or whatever, and they were happy with it. But the only zone that really got some AI changes was the cloud flat, and that's coming straight from the engineer who worked on it.
And that's definitely going to improve the situations where you had a tight end on the line of scrimmage and a C route coming from the one receiver. The cloud flat's going to do a much better job of playing that now.
But again, feel free to lab it out, and I'm sure you guys will find some small variations that are in there. It's like anything else. You want to get in the lab, try out some new things, see how it works out for you, and basically just roll with what works. Anything else from the chat before we wrap this up? I did want to mention, guys, that this is not necessarily our last update. This is the last big gameplay update. But in the world of CGD and in the world of continuous release, if something major comes up, we will always seek to fix it on our next update. Those days of us just kind of like dropping the game and abandoning you until the next year are over. And so we'll be turning our attention on to future years. We have the game changers coming in, this week, and we'll be starting our first sort of meetings with the community about what's coming next. And so we're really excited for that. But for now, we hope that this re-energizes the community. We hope that this, those detractors that were kind of interfering with your ability to enjoy this game are kind of less than they were before. I'm sure there's some of you I won't win over completely. Gaming Powerhouse, I'm still working on it. I know it'll take a few iterations before we get you on board. But for the rest of you, I really hope that this brings you back, because the main thing is we want to see you guys playing all the way through the summer. Anything to add?
No. Thanks for having us on.
Yep.
Yeah,
Enjoy the
appreciate
update,
you guys coming out, and I will definitely see you in the Twitch chats. You know me, I'll be around.
And I'll see you guys on Twitter trying to hate. It's okay. It's okay.
At
It's
Sick
allowed.
Nasty Sites.
Yeah.
No, don't tell them.
Send all your bug videos to @6nasty.
I got enough coming. Thanks, guys.
Well, you are looking live now at game number 1. Clock running down here in the first quarter. And there's a fumble. It's a scoop. And we will have a score. And they're throwing it deep, and it's picked off. And a spin move. And here is the potential game winner. 48-yarder. It's up.
We're back.
All right.
New update.
We're back because we didn't get to do any giveaways. So we're doing some giveaways. We have a Dez Bryant. Oh, is he throwing it up? He's throwing up the X. We have a Dez Bryant t-shirt. We got a giveaway winner. Big Guy 1014.
Big guy.
Big Guy, you got the Dez Bryant t-shirt coming your way.
There it is.
Big guy, do you even lift, bro?
Now, see, I don't even know if I want to give this one away. Got the Zeke Cowboys shirt right here. Now, I'm a Steelers fan, but I might have to hang on to this one. Do I have to give it away?
Yeah.
All right. It looks like we got Thomas Allen coming up on Twitter. Thomas Allen, you get a Ezekiel Elliott. Looks like a comfy t-shirt. You can work out in that. You can even eat cereal in it.
There it is.
There you go. Rex, your turn.
What? Do I have a t-shirt?
You get a no. You have to give it away. You can't keep that one.
You got to borrow it.
Can I get a Dion or an Emmett code? How much for a Dion code?
What t-shirt we got here?
That's the Odell
We got
Beckham.
Odell Beckham. I'm going to let Rex announce it. This is the winner right here, Rex.
Who is it? I got that dude blocked on Twitter, bro. No,
That's
I'm
funny.
kidding.
You had us going for a second.
Mika Iceham at MKPND. Mika Iceham.
And he's a Steelers
From
fan.
Stuttgart,
You deserve it.
Baden-Württemberg in Germany. We
really?
don't pay shipping, by the way. You got to cover that, bro. Shipping on delivery.
All right,
That's pretty cool.
We got one more Odell Beckham shirt here. Got the hair. Who we got winner here, guys? Who's winning this one? Phone.
Phone me, bro.
Phone you, bro.
Drum roll for OBJ. We got Kep at Big Kep 13.
There it is.
Looks like an Eagles fan. I don't know if he's going to like this shirt. You might want to send this one back to Rex, all right?
My Twitter, again, is at RexDEAFootball. Clint's is
at Clint Oldenburg, just my name.
Mine's at Signasty Sykes.
So if you guys have follow-up questions or anything, just hit us up on Twitter. Otherwise, we'll see you out in the Twitch chats.
Word.
Once again, we out.
Later.